Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the How to Navigate and View Data webinar. I'm Peyton Graney, and I'm a marketing specialist here at ESC Spectrum. This morning, our system implementation engineer, Simona Renz, is going to take you through some of the shortcuts for various data querying features within StackVision, such as DataLab, CalLab, and Alarms. I just want to remind you to save your questions for the end, and you can type any questions you may have for him into the question panel on the right-hand side of your screen, and I will read them out to him at the end of the presentation. Just a reminder to check out our events page because we have a lot of upcoming events, both online and in person. We have a webinar tomorrow on the new StackVision 6.18 release, and then another one on Thursday regarding one of the new features of the StackVision 6.18 dashboard feature. We also have a training coming up at the EPRI-SEM conference. So check out our events page and see what we all have coming up in the future. With that, Simone, go ahead and take it away.
Thanks, Peyton. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to How to Navigate and View Your Data. Today I'm going to be talking about a lot of different ways to approach StackVision and get the most out of it when you're navigating data. There's a lot of different ways to do it, and hopefully I can teach you a little something about StackVision. As Peyton mentioned, I'm an implementation engineer here at ESC. I've been here about 6 years, and I'm a native Houstonite, but I've been in Austin now for 13 years. So that's a little bit about me. So let's get started. So StackVision has a lot of stuff. So if you run into an issue, where do you start? What information do you pull up first? What application is best to begin with? I'm going to be giving you suggestions. Now, everything that we're going to be reviewing today isn't a requirement. You might have your own way of navigating StackVision. So what I'm going to be giving you is sort of a procedure that I think gets the most out of StackVision and how to briefly troubleshoot data and put data in a picture that gives you the most information about the problem. So here's a big picture view of where to start. I'm going to review 5 main applications within StackVision. If you don't know what some of these are, I'm going to run through a brief summary of them. SimScape. Well, SimScape makes navigating your configuration easy. It uses your configuration files to set up a graphic model for your configuration within SimScape. This model ensures that parameter relationships are easily understandable. Active Alarms, that's your utility. That provides a straightforward means by which alarms can be configured, stored, and resolved. Alarms are generated whenever an exception or an alarm name occurs and are shown in real time on each user's main data screen. DataLab, I would say that's probably my most important, biggest section that I want to talk about. In order to view data within StackVision, you can use the DataLab viewer or DataLab. You select DataLab viewer from the view pane, or to use DataLab, you can go to the tools pane. Both DataLab and DataLab viewer allow you to apply filters to data so you can focus only on the parameters that you need. Furthermore, in DataLab, you may edit data with quick processing results using Process Now. In order to, when you view data, make edits, prints, you can export data into Excel, apply linear adjustments, perform data replacements, Part 75 advanced data replacements. You can also launch an editor in a different time interval. You can see flags easier by applying flag colors, show or hide fields, and you can search for a specific item in a specific parameter. Configuration compare, underutilized tool in my opinion. This is a utility that is available when you're running StackVision version 5.4 or later. The utility uses a built-in intelligence to intelligently compare and identify differences in the configuration settings of StackVision and the 8864 data controller. The two-way comparison is currently read-only. You can't actually make any edits within this application. It's also not designed to allow you to change any configuration settings. And then DataLab, it was introduced in 6.3. And this tool allows you to compare, analyze, and modify data for planned and unplanned events. For example, you can use DataLab to add and modify records for startup, shutdown, and power outages, as well as flare events at a refinery. And I guess quick note, this information that I'm giving you, it's all available on our website. I might defer to that a couple more times, so I encourage you guys to, after this, go to our website if you want to search our knowledge base, to have more specific articles on each topic that I'm talking about today. So starting with SimScape, it illustrates your parameters in your system and identifying inputs and outputs with one easy to view network. So you have the ability to visualize representations of all your sources and data controllers. You can select a specific object, or you can click, hold, drag a box over info objects. You can view a subset of related data in a new window. You can quickly view information about objects. You can easily access reports from the objects on your screen, and you can readily access other features such as DataLab or CalLab from this tool as well. If you don't know how to get to SimScape, it is part of your View tab or your View pane, or if you go to the top of the screen, I have a screenshot here. Your toolbars have a section called View, and under View, you click on SimScape. When you first click on SimScape, the first thing that will happen is it'll bring up a screen with everything that exists in your system or your configuration. It starts with the sources on the left, then the column next to that is your data controllers, and the column next to that is your independent parameters or raw parameters or time online parameters. Then everything to the right of that are your dependent parameters. It follows this order every single time you open it. So if you're looking for a parameter with a particular equation, stick to the right side of the screen. Now, I'm not going to be discussing how to use SimScape specifically, but I'm going to point out some things that might help navigate SimScape a little easier. Now, you might notice if you open up SimScape for the first time, most configurations are, there's a lot of information there. It can be tedious to search through all of those objects and find a parameter that you need. So I recommend using the drop-down menu. You can also right-click on objects to get more information by clicking on the Properties tab, and there are more options in the right-click options of an object. The Go-To drop-down is for some reason not known as well as it should be. It's located in the Shortcuts toolbar. This shortcut will basically drop down everything in your configuration, and it's going to list it from in order, starting with the plant acronym. Then it's going to show the source. Then it's going to show the parameter, all in alphabetical order. Well, numerical order first, then alphabetical order. So instead of painstakingly searching through your data in SimScape, utilize the Go-To dropdown. Now, in the objects in that screen, if you right-click any of them, if you click any of them, on the left side of the screen, you're going to have a pane that updates based on the object that you have selected. You'll have a general and a summary tab. you'll also have views if you happen to be saving views in SimScape. I want to direct your attention to selecting the Summary tab. The Summary tab is going to show you the information about an object that is selected. Quick note, in order to determine what object is selected, in the data area, there is a dark gray highlight around the object. That is the object that's selected, so that's the information that's going to be displayed in the Properties tab. And then let's say that you have found the equation that matters to you. There's another way to view all of the parameters details. And if this SimScape view isn't cutting it, it's too specified, another option you can do is utilizing the parameter detailed reports. That's a configuration standard report that you can find in the report section in StackVision. Speaking of reports, reports is another option that you can select when you right-click an object. Notice it is one of 5 or 4 options when you right-click an object. The right-click options change depending on the object that you select. So if you have an array of objects that are selected, and you know that they're selected with the dark gray highlight around the object, if you right-click any of those selected objects and you hit Report Selection, it's going to bring up a StackVision average data report automatically and showing you all of the selected objects in that report. The only thing you have to do is change the dates to view the data in the report format. Anything that is color-coded when you touch or click an object is considered the network of an object. So if you right-clicked the selected object, then anything that is touching that object that lights up in color, and you hit Report Network, it's going to show everything in the network. So be careful with that one. That might give you a little bit too much information. In order to differentiate between selection and network and control it yourself, hold down Control. And when you hold down Control and then click certain objects, then you can specify what objects you need if you're reporting selection. Now you also have View a New Window. That's essentially decluttering your space and moving everything in the network to a new window and removing all the other objects you don't care about. Quick View shows you quick information about the object, which is real-time data, or 1-minute data, I believe, sorry, and if the data is valid or not. And then Edit Selection or Edit Network, that is going to bring up DataLab. Notice in the data controller objects, if you right-click that guy, you can actually see the calibration reference values. When you do that, it's going to bring you to your cylinder management page. Like I said, the Quick View, it shows you the current status of selected parameters. And I would say the most important option to consider is your Edit Selection, your Edit Network option. That is going to bring up the DataLab and DataLab viewer. I prefer you take that route when you're navigating your data, because essentially what you're seeing in DataLab or DataLab viewer is what's going to be shown in the reports. So if you have granted access to utilize DataLab and you need to make adjustments, you want to select on Edit Selection or Edit Network so that you can make those edits there, save, process now, whatever you have to do. And then when you pull up the reports with the pertinent parameters, they will be updated with the changes you made in DataLab. Sorry. Mouthful parts. Okay. So you have identified the parameters of interest to you. Now this next section, checking your active alarms, may or may not matter to you. In fact, depending on what you're trying to do, how you're navigating your data, checking active alarms might be the first thing you do. That's completely fine. For example, if an alarm comes up that you don't understand, it's going to most likely give you a data alarm. It's going to give you a source and parameter that you may not be familiar with. So if your job is to monitor the active alarms panel, then you might see those parameters of interest and then open up Simscape, use your drop-down menu, open up a new window, and understand a little bit more about what that parameter does. So this section could be before or after Simscape. They're interchangeable. So it consists of 3 different types of alarms: your data alarms, your system alarms, and your application alarms. Quick review: data is the alarm that we're going to be using. Obviously, it's going to show you your state of the alarm, whether it's outstanding, if it's returned to normal, or been acknowledged, or both. If it has both returned to normal and acknowledged, then the alarm is archived into the alarms report. So remember, if you decide to acknowledge an alarm, don't let all of your alarms build up there. If they are acknowledged and returned to normal, they don't disappear forever. They go into your alarms report. Then you have a description of the alarm. That's basically the alarm message that comes along with the alarm name. Then you have your start and end time. That's important information for when you're navigating DataLab, your plant and source, and your parameter. Along with the parameter, you have the interval of time, which is also important, and the value. So that's pretty much it for active alarms. You're essentially just pulling the information you need. Then you're going to Simscape. You're selecting your objects or your network, and then you're right-clicking. You're going to Edit, Selection Network, and then you're going to pull up DataLab. If you don't have access to that, you can always go to your View or Viewer, or your View pane, and then select DataLab Viewer. Now, once you've gotten to this section, there's a lot of stuff. We're not gonna go through everything, obviously, but I'm gonna show you the things that may be pertinent to you. Now, I may have mentioned some or most or all of these things at the beginning, but this is not even all inclusive. There's a lot you can do, and hopefully there are some things in DataLab that you may or may not know about. For example, the tabs within DataLab at the bottom of the screen, cross tab and linear tab, those 2 tabs can give you different results in a different way. We're going to start with the cross tab view. I recommend utilizing Excel along with DataLab. Use it as a partner to DataLab. Why? If you're a heavy DataLab user and your goal is to export data into Excel and collaborate with colleagues based on what you're seeing in DataLab, you can actually use Excel as a clipboard. And as long as you have the array correct, everything that you copy and paste from Excel into DataLab will just paste the values automatically. And it works the other way around. You can copy and paste from StackVision into an Excel sheet. Just remember that when you do that, the column name is always going to come with the copy and paste. It's going to show you the name and parameter no matter what. So make sure you have your array correct when you're copy and pasting from StackVision into Excel. Now, the other thing about the DataLab screen, before you do any type of copy and paste, remember everything that you see in the screen, you're going to copy and paste, is what's going to be copy and pasted into wherever you're moving the information. So there's some information that you need to put on the screen that I think should be a default that you can access in the shortcuts toolbar. And there's you can utilize the fields and parameters dropdown to identify all the pertinent data that you need in DataLab. So at the top, I have some screenshots here. the types of data that I recommend that you put on the screen along with the data values is whether the data is missing or invalid or out of control. All of those settings are crucial to understanding why your data is behaving the way it is. You can also pull up the reason code, because if you were using the actual launch pending for the screen, the reason code is put on that data, that interval of data, after an alarm has been acknowledged. So you can see what reason code was put on that data when the alarm came in. And then if you're using, if you're working with Part 75 data, you have specific Part 75 data as well. All of these, there's a lot of options here. Just make sure that you're identifying the things that matter to you. Note, parameters, the difference between parameters and fields is that you can specifically call out things within parameters. So if you pull up a field and you select invalid, then it's going to show you everything in that data area. All of the parameters can show its invalid message. If you only care about gas flow, you can go to the parameters dropdown and show only the invalid masks on gas flow. So parameters dropdown is just going to show you a specified view of your data, and then field is going to update all of the data parameters in your data area. Remember that you're not stuck with how StackVision prevents, how DataLab presents your data. You can actually rearrange your columns. You can resize them too. So if you double click the column header, it will turn a color, showing you that it's been selected, and then you can click, hold, drag to its desired space. Now, once you've done that, anything that is attached to that data is going to move along with it. Another thing about DataLab that I think needs to be utilized more often, at least something I do, is the custom filtering. It allows you to show you views of data according to specified operators. So if you want to look at an array of data that's happened on a particular date, you can actually drop down the date custom filtering and then show a condition that's equal to a particular date, or before a particular date, or after a particular date by using these operators, greater than or less than. You can also include invalid, missing data, or OOC data at the same time. And then when you do these custom filterings, you can utilize the Add Summaries page. Now, what to remember with the Add Summaries, it's a shortcut that you can utilize on the column of data, or you can add summaries on the shortcuts toolbar. What to remember about this is when you're using filters, such as custom filtering, and then you add summaries, the summaries are going to show you the summary of the data on the screen. So if you utilize custom filtering, you remove invalid data points, then the grand summaries, it's just going to show you the average, sum, min, max, and count of the things that are on that screen. So it won't include any invalid data in that situation. So that's why I think it's a powerful way of utilizing data to give you a snapshot of what data is doing when it includes or excludes invalid, missing, or OC data, or different types of data tags. So you want to do it on a parameter per parameter approach. Click the summation symbol on the column. It's next to the filter option. You can even select the summaries that you need, or, and like I mentioned in the shortcuts toolbar, if you click the summation with the green plus sign, it'll give you everything on the screen. It's going to show you grand summaries of those parameters. Now, like I mentioned, there are two different types of tabs. Of the tips that I gave you can utilize for both views. The difference between crosstab and linear is that crosstab is displayed in chronological order, and the parameter values and field are in columns. and the dates and times are in a row, and the crosstab view by default shows you the source of the parameter. The linear view does not show you the source of the parameter by default. So if you wanted to see the sources of the parameters in the linear view, which transposes all of your data, then ensure to select in fields source. In general, it transposes that correct crosstab view into the view that you're seeing here. And a good way to utilize this is it's a good way to modify a large group of parameters for one hour or date and time. Another thing to keep in mind is if you feel like your problem was because somebody accidentally modified data or it was recalculated, StackVision has the ability to restore that data to the original data point. So you can either right-click a row of data and hit restore from original, or there's a shortcut. So when you select multiple data points in the linear view, then you can restore from original by doing all of those. You can also freeze columns or rows. How many people know that? There's a very hard to tell square or rectangle on the bottom left of the screen. You have multiple columns. That's the only way this little square is going to show up. Click on that square. It's going to, and you drag it to the position that you want. It's going to freeze those selected parameters. The same thing will happen with the rows. Notice that on the right side, top right, you'll have this rectangle available too, so you can actually freeze the rows or the headers if you want. Another thing that I like to utilize in DataLab is launching different interval data straight from your 1 hour data. By the way, DataLab defaults with 1 hour data. On the bottom left of DataLab, you'll have an option to select the interval of time, and by default it shows you 1 hour. So if you're starting with DataLab, make sure you have the right data interval selected. If you don't change it at all and you pull up 1 hour data at first, you can always right-click on a data point or select multiple data points. You can, by the way, you can select multiple data points by either using Control A to select all of them, or you can hold Control and click hold and then move your mouse over the data that you care about. And then you can right-click that data and show select interval. Another tool to utilize is showing full precision. And you can do this by going to the view toolbar and selecting, it's by default, it's showing you the rounded values, and you'll see a little check mark next to it. So if you click that guy, it'll ask you to update or re-retrieve the data, and then everything on the screen is going to show you full precision, all the decimals in your data points. So that, I think, covers all of the shortcuts or tips that I wanted to give you, or the tricks of the trade. Next thing I wanted to talk about, which you didn't get in the original time I presented this, is there's a charts tool that was released today. You can go to our website now and check out the new charts tool in version 6.18. It replaces the old charts tool that was within DataLab. You may have noticed in that screenshot that we had a cross tab, linear tab, and charts tab. Well, this tool is supposed to replace that and ultimately provides capabilities way above what the DataLab charts tool was able to do. So the one on this screenshot shows the ability to show multiple charts within the charts application with that plus sign. I'll just pull up a new chart. The 2 is the data area where you can select the source and the parameters that show up in your charts example, which is 3. You can see data in line or scatter plots. Then 4, you have options depending on what's selected in the chart area. And then 5, whenever you have something selected, it's going to automatically show you a quick summary, similar to the grand summaries that we talked about in DataLab. These line charts allow you to select up to 8 parameters in the selected chart, and they also allow you to choose 1 parameter. The scatter charts allow you to choose 1 parameter for the x-axis and 1 for the y-axis. When you make these updates and select parameters, they're going to automatically update the line chart and scatter charts. You can move your cursor within that space and see a particular data point's data. If you want to define a scatter or line plot, remember to utilize the right side of the screen of the options, and you can change the exclusions within the sources parameter, so you can exclude invalid or OC data. You can alter the date and time range. You can also use the options pane to save the chart as a different type of file, such as a JPEG or a PDF. You can actually customize line charts to synchronize vertical axes. You can change the vertical scaling. You can hide or show series lines, parameter lines. And you can actually add multiple baselines or reference lines in the charts. That's new to this. You can also toggle highlighting or show or hide trend lines. It's pretty cool. And then we have that new summary pane on the bottom right. That's a really good way of quickly viewing your grand summaries. And everything else that you want in a new release, I recommend you go and check out the release notes on our website. Here's a quick screenshot of the new release for line charts. Oh, and you have the option of hiding that option thing. I had a note here. Gaps are present in chart lines. You can actually interpret those gaps by determining if they're null or invalid or offline. And if you have that gap and you move your cursor over that gap and it shows no data to display, that means there's nothing in the database for that gap. If you move over your cursor over that gap, it could show you whether that data point is invalid or offline or substituted. So gaps in data are a little different in that you can move your cursor over those gaps and determine why there are gaps there. Quick note about dashboards. Dashboards doesn't exactly pertain to this, just because that's more of a monitoring. You can view your data just fine. It's just going to show you by default minute or instantaneous data. Some of the enhancements I have on the screen here, such as the ability to snap to grid or snap to object your objects within the dashboard space. I know that was annoying in the past. You can drag grid objects by quick holding and drawing a square over those objects and selecting all of them moving around at the same time. And there are way better tooltip hints, such as the plus and minus buttons when you're viewing the trend chart in display mode. These buttons show you more data for historical data points in real time. Okay, if you want to learn more about that, again, I encourage you to go to our website and check that out and move on. We're going to talk a little bit about what if your data pertains to calibrations? Well, you first might learn about a calibration issue by pulling up a calibration detail report. That's 99% of the time, that's where people are getting their information first. And once they do that, you can pull up a calibration trending report over the past week to see if there has been a change in the particular parameter's calibrations. Once you've done that, you can utilize SimScape, pull up the parameters that touch that calibrated parameter, and when you right-click, you can actually go to Edit Network or Edit Selection and pull up CalLab. It's an option. Like DataLab, CalLab can be utilized to return key calibration data. Like DataLab, on the bottom of the screen, you have different tabs that show you different views of CalLab. Data can be filtered using funnel icons, just like DataLab. But different between DataLab and CalLab is calibration gas reference values, injection levels, anything that's calibration related, you can view in a DataLab format in CalLab. A lot, if not most, of the tools that I went over in the DataLab section pertain to the CalLab section. So just keep that in mind. I put some differences between DataLab and CalLab on the screen. Don't forget to hit save. I know it's an easy one to forget. For whatever reason, I see it happen a lot in CalLab. If you make changes or save changes in CalLab, that's what you're going to see in your calibration detail reports. You found the problem. What do you do now? The next thing I recommend is to compare the data you're seeing with the controller. Most people that utilize StackVision are also utilizing the 8864. And we have a tool that you can use to compare what the controllers has and what StackVision has. Also, another note, if the data that you need originates from the data controller, viewing the data in the data controller is key, because that's where your critical data is starting from. And if that data is pulled into StackVision, there's always the potential for StackVision to use that data or calculate it, whatever. So data can change when it moves to StackVision. So if you are going deep into a troubleshooting scenario, looking at data in the controller can be critical. I'm not going to review that because there's a lot of different things you need to know about navigating the controller, but in general, if your problem requires you to look at the data on the controller, be sure to utilize our 8864 manual to understand how to navigate the data. For now, I think I need to highlight the importance of the configuration compare tool. It's a utility that is available when you're running StackVision later than 5.4. And just keep in mind, config compare is not designed to allow you to make configuration changes. It's just supposed to highlight to you the differences between what's in the 8864 and what's in StackVision. What's common is people that work with the 8864 only will make changes in the 8864 and forget to notify environmental about what needs to be changed in StackVision. The benefits of config compare is config compare can help identify configuration changes made to the controller or to StackVision, and identify them, and you can go in and make those, keep the configurations consistent. You can actually print the screen by hitting report, and report is going to pull up a screen similar to the reports that you pull up in StackVision, and you can export the configuration compare reports in whatever Excel, PDF format, whatever you need. You can also alter what you're seeing because the config compare by default shows you a lot of information. You can filter by using the matches and the differences section. This is an awesome tool to pinpoint configuration items that could be causing your data problems. The differences tend to be the main reason why data behaving abnormally. So once you've identified everything before config compare, this is the first stop to determining the problem with your data. After you have identified all of the parameters that are pertinent to your problem. Okay, now that you've identified the problem, you've identified whether if the problem originates in the controller or in StackVision, and you want to utilize our new tool, our DataLab tool. Our DataLab is a tool that allows you to compare, analyze, and modify data for planned and unplanned events. Essentially, you're using DataLab, but in a more focused format, where if you make an DataLab entry, it's going to automatically create a logbook entry for you and make changes to the database. It's actually why there's a warning to let you know, like, hey, just let you know we're changing historical data. It's important that you understand you're going to be changing a lot of stuff. If you make changes to raw parameters and you run process now, anything that raw parameter is touching is going to be affected. So that's why it's critical to understand when you're changing historical data, you need to proceed with caution, as the pop-up shows. I have a screenshot here. When you add that new entry, it looks a lot like our logbook entry. So when you make that new entry, you need to fill in everything with a red star on the right side of the screen. And once you've done that, you've selected everything. And then a common thing to forget is in some versions of DataLab, you have to right click and enable the space and data to edit it. I think in newer versions, you can double click that space to just make an edit. So just don't forget, if you need to make changes to those actual values, I think they make it particularly difficult to do that just because, you know, what it could potentially change. Remember that if the ability to make changes to that data or the missing or invalid or OC mask, you can do that in the data area. It's not locked to you. You just have to make sure that you right click or double click that space. Another thing that people tend to forget is not only can you make a change and save it within DataLab, but once selecting save will save the event, but the changes won't be applied until process now runs every hour. So if when the option for saving is selected, it'll also give you an DataLab warning. If you hit apply and save the entries, the change will be made immediately. Okay, now DataLab is a more focused approach and it'll create logbook entries. If you make a change in DataLab, you're actually not going to get that automatic logbook entry. So just keep that in mind when if you're making any edits to data or navigating data. But other than that, I think that's everything. Went a little over. So now I'll stop and take questions if anybody has them.
Here's another question. Do we automatically have graphing updates?
To ensure I understand your question, if there are updates to the charts tool, and StackVision releases a new release, will it automatically update your current client? No. If there are any updates to your charts tool or to anything in StackVision, those updates need to be downloaded and installed. So if you're aware, if you see a release, that's not going to automatically update on your end. You need to contact IT or whoever performs those updates for you, and then those tools will be updated as well. It doesn't do it automatically.
Any other questions? Please remind me of the chart's update name to look for. Someone asked.
Can you repeat the question? Sorry.
Please remind me of the chart's update name to look for.
I don't know if there's a particular name. Today we released version 6.18. Every release is going to come with some sort of update. So I wouldn't call it a particular name. The version today that was released is 6.18. You can go to our website and download it. There's also update instructions on how to do it. So if you're signed up to our emails, I believe they're blasted out every time there's a release. There should be links on how to go and find it. Now, does that answer your question? Hopefully it does.
She said, okay, thanks. Yeah, and that's a great point, Simone. We just sent out the 6.18 release email, so that is now available for download. So if you didn't receive the email, just go to our website and you can log into the customer community to download the latest version of StackVision. And I don't think there are any more questions, but I just wanted to remind everyone to check out our events page. There are 2 StackVision 6.18 webinars coming up tomorrow and Thursday, so definitely attend those so you can see all the new features and enhancements of the newest version of StackVision. And then check out some of our in-person events that we have coming up as well. Thanks everyone. Have a great day.